Welcome to today's lesson where we are going to be addressing common misconception when answering speed, distance and time GCSE examination questions. My name is Miss Maina. For the set activity, I want you to look at the questions there and identify 4 wrong answers. Feel free to discuss with the person next to you. Okay, I'm sure you've come up with a few wrong answers. But it's interesting to know that all these questions here are common mathematical misconception, meaning all answers are actually wrong. So let's look at the first question. 6 squared, any squared numbers, most people may interpret that as times 2, which is not. So 6 squared should be 36. Question number 2 is addressing the misconception that any number times 0 is not 0, but we know that any number times 0 should be 0. Question number 3 is on place value, 408, 400, but the answer given there, 4 is 1000. So the answer should be 408, 408. Question number 4, 0.10, some people say it as 0.10, but it's actually 0.1 because 0 at the end is very insignificant. Question number 5, when you multiply decimals by 10, 100 or 1000, so the answer there should actually be 5, not 0.50. So you do not just add a 0 at the end when multiplying with decimals. I want you to remember the misconception in question number 6. 6 divided by a half, which is a whole number divided by a half. Most students make that mistake. In this question here, it is not 3. When you think about dividing by fractions, I want you to think about apples. 6 apples divide by a half, so half each one of the apples. And the answer you should get is 12. So 12 parts. Question number 7, students do struggle with adding negative numbers. The answer there should be -2. 4%, changing percentages to decimals. So 4% should actually be 0.04. When you've got 0.4, that should be 40%. Moving on. So we're going to look at the misconception. The first misconception is the relationship between speed, distance, and time. We're then going to look at how you deal with decimals and fractional units, dealing with different units of measure. All those are grade 4 kind of questions. Then from there, we're going to be looking at calculating distance from speed and time graph, which is grade 6, and general problem solving. The keywords for this lesson are average, distance, speed, time, and acceleration. So, a little recap there. The relationship between speed, distance, and time, usually we express this using a triangle. I'm sure we've come across this triangle here. And in particular, it's the expressions, the operations in the middle. So division and multiplication. When do we divide? When do we multiply? So speed is distance divided by time. So cover up the speed there. And you're left with distance divided by time. Distance is speed times time. And time is distance divided by speed. So do not forget that. Draw the triangle and then the operations in there. I would like to point out average speed. So when you have exam questions, they will ask for the average speed. Now the average speed is still very similar to speed, because if you're driving from London to Manchester, you're very unlikely to go at a uniform speed. So average speed is usually means the speed from one place to the other. Now, a few quotes from examiners in the past. One is some candidates who knew the formula for speed and wrote down distance, speed, time, triangle, then used the wrong operations. So multiplication rather than division to find the answer, or division rather than multiplication. The second mistakes that students make is the candidates do not know the formula, so could not answer the question. So it's important for us to remember that triangle. Misconception number 2, fractional and decimal units. Now, I want you to discuss with the person next to you. 1, what is the same in this question, and what is the differences in the 3 questions? Got a few minutes to do that. Okay, I'm sure we've come up with this, that what is similar is that they're all 42 miles. All 3 questions, we're looking at 42 miles. We are also calculating the average speed for all 3 questions. And the answers expected are miles per hour. So in all 3 questions. The differences is you've got minutes there. So the time is given in minutes. But the answer is expected in hours. So how do we do these questions? Because you're looking for speed, so going by this triangle here, speed is distance divided by time. On the first question, 60 minutes. 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. We have to change the minutes to hours because the answer expects us to give it in hours. So 60 minutes is equivalent to 1 hour. And then we use our formula. So speed is distance divided by time, 42 divided by 1, which gives you 42 miles per hour. Question number 2, 30 minutes. 30 minutes is half an hour, 0.5 or half an hour. So we need to change that to half an hour. And then again, speed 42 divided by half, which gives you 84 miles per hour. If you remember the starter question, we had question number 6, which was dividing a whole number by a fraction. So 42 apples, divide each into halves, you will get 84 parts of it. 15 minutes there, which is quarter of an hour. And question number 3 should be 42 divided by a quarter, gives you 168. Again, if you can remember how to divide with fractions, which is keep, change, flip. So remember that when dealing with, when revising fractions. Looking at the next one, which are very similar, but in this case here, you've got 20 minutes and 10 minutes. Could you tell me the mistake a student can make when answering this question? Okay, I'm sure we've come up with the fact that changing 20 minutes can be a bit tricky compared to the previous 3 questions where you had 60 minutes, 30 minutes, and 15 minutes. When it comes to 20 minutes or 15 or 13 minutes, 14 minutes, it's a bit tricky changing the 20 minutes into hours. So what we do is we know that it's 20 minutes out of 60. So as a fraction, that gives us a third. It's a third of an hour. And so to calculate the average speed, we use the same formula there. And that gives you 42 divided by a third, 126 miles per hour. 10 minutes, we need to change the 10 minutes into hours. So divide by 60. So 10 divided by 60, which gives you a sixth. Now changing the 6, using the 6 to work out speed, then we know there that speed is distance divided by time, and we should get 252 miles per hour. So something to note there, that 7 hours, 12 minutes is not 7.12. And 3.54 hours is not 3 hours, 4 minutes. It's not also 3 hours, 40 minutes. No. So going by previous examiner's report was that some candidates mistook the decimal part for minutes. Please do not make that mistake when you're revising and when you're addressing such questions. Going for common misconception 3, distance, speed, and time do not have fixed units. So it's important for us to look at the units that are given in the question and the units that are expected in the answer. So the misconception before that was to address the fractions and the decimals, but this one here is mainly to look at the units. So the first question there, we've got 400 meters in 1 minute 35 seconds. But looking at the answer, it's calculate his average speed in meters per second, which means step number 1, we need to change the 1 minute 35 seconds into seconds. So we know that 1 minute 35 will be 60 plus 35, which gives you 95 seconds. So again, speed equals to distance divided by time, and we divide that. So pointing out that change the units to what is required for the answer. Question number 2. So you've got 33,600 miles at an average speed of 480 miles per hour. So in this case here, we know that distance, calculate the time. Time is distance divided by speed, which gives you 3,600 divided by 487.5 hours. Now, you can write the answer as 7.5 hours, but the question says calculate the time taken for the journey in hours and minutes. So we need to change the 0.5 into minutes. And we know here that 0.5 is half, and half an hour is equivalent to 30 minutes. So your actual answer should be 7 hours, 30 minutes. Okay. Common misconception 4, which is interpreting the speed time graph correctly to work out the distance, which is grade 6. So you got the graph there, speed time graph. Looking at that, it says the biker accelerates 4 seconds, then travels at a constant speed of 8 miles per second for 4 seconds, then decelerating as shown on the graph. Calculate the total distance traveled. Take your time and answer that question. If you're really stuck, put your hand up and I'll come round checking. Okay. Now, looking at this, distance, the relationship between speed and time. Distance is speed times time. Now, most students just tend to read it off from the graph and then use that formula. But unfortunately, we cannot do that here. So in this case, it's knowing that speed times time. The area under the graph here will give us the distance. There are 2 ways of working this out. One is looking at the shape. It is a trapezium, and using the area of a trapezium formula. Alternatively, we can subdivide this shape into different parts, different triangles there and a rectangle in the middle, and work out the area of that shape. So I'm going to use the trapezium method to work out that. Check if you got the answer correct, and we should get 56 meters. Well done if you got that correct. If you have any question, let me know. Examiner's report. I'm going to quote something that the examiner wrote last year, that the candidates did not know how to find distance from a linear non-horizontal speed time graph. They incorrectly used the formula, taking values from the graph rather than finding the area under the graph. Looking at the 4th one, which is in general, solving problems. You've got Mike drives from Manchester to London. He drives at an average speed of 50 miles per hour for the first 3 hours. He then has 150 miles to drive to get to London. He drives at an average speed of 30 miles per hour. Mike says, my average speed from Manchester to London was 40 miles per hour. Is Mike right? 4 marks there. Consult with the person next to you. If you can work independently if you think you can solve this question. If you're unsure, discuss with the person next to you. If you're really stuck, put your hand up and I'll come around helping you. Okay, when it comes to problem solving, the main thing that students do is either they miss a few important details, alternatively, not fully answer the question. So they might work out a few parts of the question, but not fully answer the question as expected by the examiner. So let's go through it. A few pointers. Always underline the key points. Then clearly show the steps in your working. Draw a diagram if that helps you. So I'm going to draw a diagram to solve this. So we've got London, Manchester there, a point in the middle where the speed changes. On the first part, I've got 50 miles per hour, which is the speed for the first 3 hours. The next part of the journey, I've got 150 miles to cover with a speed of 30 miles per hour. Now the question is, my average speed from Manchester to London was 40 miles per hour. So we're looking for speed there, and we know that speed is distance divided by time. So I need to work out the total distance for the journey divided by the total time taken to travel from Manchester to London. So I'm going to start off by working out the total distance. I know that one part is 150 miles per hour, 150 miles. The other part is speed of 50 miles per hour for 3 hours. So looking at speed of 50 miles per hour for 3 hours, that will be 150 miles. So total distance will be 300 miles. Then I'm going to look at the total time taken. I know the first part of the journey is 3 hours. The next part of the journey, I've got to calculate that. I've got 150 miles covered in 30 miles per hour. So the time there will be 150 divided by 30, which gives me 5 hours. So the total time taken is 8 hours. Then I work out my speed. Total distance divided by total time, 300 divided by 8, which is 37.5 miles per hour. Is he correct? Mike said that his average speed would be 40 miles per hour, so he is wrong. And we have to make that conclusion there. Therefore, Mike is not right. He's not correct. So remember, the triangle and correct operations. You've got the triangle there. Remember when to divide, when to multiply. 2, check the units given in the questions and convert them to what is expected in the answer. 3, take caution when dividing whole numbers by fractions. 4, when you calculate a time and get a decimal answer, do not mistake the decimal part for minutes. You must either leave the time as a decimal number and give the units as hours, or change the decimal parts to minutes by multiplying it by 60, because we know that 1 hour equals to 60 minutes, and give the answer in hours and minutes. And also check at what the examiner requires at the end, on the answer. Is the answer asked as hours or minutes, and convert that. 5, to work out distance from speed and time graph, calculate the area under the curve. 6, when problem solving, underline key parts, draw a diagram, and show all you're working out. An exercise for you. In this exercise here, I expect if you think you're still struggling and would need more support, to do the first column. If you're not sure, you understand a few parts of solving questions on speed, time, and distance, then you do the second column. But if you're confident in this topic, feel free to do the third column there. I'll be here to attend to any issues that you might have, and that is the end of the lesson. Thank you very much.